Good evening and welcome back to AAC. I welcome you back to the first of our lecture series in the AAC workshop Konzerthaus Stuttgart, where we're looking into concert halls. Tonight, our first lecture, I'm very pleased to welcome back to AAC Professor Jörg Friedrich. Professor Jörg Friedrich is interwoven with this workshop in a much tighter way than you might think. Stuttgart, where our project is, used to be his university town, and he went on from there to open an office with Böge Lindner and later his own office, and has now an office in Hamburg and Genoa. But also he comes back to AAC, where we welcomed him before, and we had a great time together when we were exploring opera houses in our workshop 2 years ago. Thank you very much for coming back. Your lecture then was very well received, as it looked into the ins and outs and history of opera houses. And the third point is that Professor Jörg Friedrich is a well-known and much awarded architect of theater venues, and so we're very much looking forward to getting the insight you bring to us today on der Klang der Stille, über das Hören im architektonischen Raum. His lecture will be in German, and since we made the experience that there never is one language everyone can speak, we decided that in the end the pictures have to speak and you have to discuss with your group teammates about what you saw and what you understood. And in order to make it easier, we also have the opportunity afterwards to discuss what we saw over a glass of wine. But for now, very welcome back, Professor Jörg Friedrich.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm so sorry you didn't describe the person who is here. He described another man, but I'm very proud to be here. I'm so sorry for my bad English for this. Nico Götze allowed me to try in German. If you have questions, ask in between. We are talking. It's not a lecture. This is for your project a beginning. Stuttgart, I tried a little bit in English now, I'm sorry, and afterwards, if it's too horrible, I will talk in German. Stuttgart was my university town, and now actually I'm constructing in Stuttgart a theater, a dancing theater, and it's a strange city. I don't know whether you saw it already or you watched on the site. In my study times it was horrible, and to study there, so we escaped every day in other cities. Italy was very near, France was even nearer, so Stuttgart, we haven't been too often there, but now it's changed a little bit in the last 20 years. I think it becomes a nice city with a good wine, with some good kitchen, and also nice people we met there. Your program is a house for concerts for 1,800 people, 600 persons in a little concert hall, and as I heard, 3,000 square meter for the public spaces. It's enormous. Someone I ask me, where do we need all these spaces for these 7 concerts in a year in a great town to construct them? But it's nice to project concert houses. So it's a nice and interesting concept workshop. I think we begin. Theater and concert has an old history in our cultural world history. This is some 2,500 years before Christ in the landscape of Peru, not 2,000 but 60,000 visitors, and they used, ach, das ist jetzt das Geheimnis hier. Wo hat den? Yeah. And it's the way to inscenate landscape and culture with elements of the landscapes. Stairs, places, circles and round forms with the center in the middle, and this is for 60,000 people. Strange that in this time it looks like a very modern. It looks like a very modern opera house Grundriss, and I couldn't believe this has been invented some 4,000 years ago. Incredible. The story of rooms or places for cultural events in the beginning of our culture began in the landscape. Also the Greek developed concert areas or concert houses or theaters in landscapes. But the landscape here became architecture by stairs and stone, but the view from here was the view in the landscape onto the sea. Fantastic. But this is not enough for transporting culture. In the 400 years before Christ, the artists needed some architecture behind them. This is a strange feeling. This one they needed to make the spectacle or the concert or the singing here better. And they could, they needed the background to be served also with some scenic equipment. Then the Romans came, colonized, and the landscape version of these kind of theaters escaped into the towns, into the centers or in the middle of cities. So it became more architecture and less landscape. And you can see it here. This is becoming architecture, not anymore landscape. The stairs are landscape motifs. The house here, the backstage, is already architecture in the town, in the city. And we changed from landscape art into architecture. Then, in Rome, in the center of Rome, began the reuse of antique theaters and places and ruins, because the Roman Catholic Church didn't allow the use of the theaters. They stopped all the music and cultural events, and it was a big question: what do we make with our history? And the Romans have been very clever. The theater was not used anymore, but it remained there as a ruin. And upstairs, they made housing and used the interior square of the Colosseum, of the theater, as a private space for the inhabitants, and changed so the Konzerthaus typus or the amphitheater typus in a housing mixed typus in the inner cities in Rome. I find this is a very interesting project, and this is the same. It's a hotel, not anymore housing for the rich people in Rome, but it's the same idea. This is the ground floor, it's a garage, it's the old monument, housing, hotels, and inside the concert hall. This is all I want to tell you. If you want that I continue, I could also continue, but it's the perspective. What is for concert hall for you important? Listening. Das muss ich jetzt auf Deutsch sagen. Wir hören mit den Ohren. Wir hören uns mit den Ohren und wir hören einen Raum mit den Ohren. Den Raum hören wir über 2 Ohren, weil das zweidimensional, diese 7 Zentimeter hier, machen bereits schon den räumlichen Höreindruck für Räume, auch für ihre Konzerthalle letzten Endes aus. Das heißt, man nennt es, man hört die Richtung. Das Zweite ist, wie nehme ich einen Raum wahr? Das ist etwas schwieriger, etwas komplexer. Es ist akustisch auch schwieriger zu erklären. Ich habe nur ein paar Begriffe einfach. Ich nehme erstmal über das Ohr den Raum wahr. 7 Zentimeter Unterschied. Ich habe Nerven im Inneren, die diese Signale nach innen weitergeben. Ich habe ein Gehirn, also ich nicht mehr so wie Sie, aber auch ich höre über das Gehirn. Und in dem Gehirn finden Prozesse statt, die durch minimale Zeitverschiebungen, Millisekunden, Millihertz, ganz wenige Frequenzunterschiede, tatsächlich dem Kopf signalisieren können, dass ich einen Raum wahrzunehmen scheine. Ich höre diesen Raum, ich höre die Richtung, ich höre, ob etwas von hinten oder von vorne kommt, von der Seite, von der rechten Seite, von oben und von unten. Und das ist hochinteressant. Was hat das für eine Bewandtnis, wenn man diesen physikalischen Vorgang oder auch neurologischen Vorgang des Hörens in Bezug bringt zur Architektur? Sie wollen Hörräume entwickeln, entwerfen und müssen sich sehr früh überlegen, was denn eigentlich gehört werden soll und was nicht gehört werden soll. Das ist ein Diagramm von einem Musiker aufgestellt. Der interessiert sich nicht für die Architektur. Der hat einfach geschrieben, für meine Kompositionstechnik brauche ich einen Aufführungsraum. Er gibt keine Anweisung, wie dieser Aufführungsraum für ihn sein soll. Er sagt einfach nur, naja gut, als Komponist habe ich eine Raumerfahrung. Ich kenne die Kompositionsstruktur und die beabsichtigte Klangwirkung im Raum und daraufhin kann ich meine Komposition erstellen. Wir Architekten müssen diesen Raum ausdenken und müssen sozusagen vorausdenken, was der Komponist mit unseren Räumen machen will oder was alte, vergangene Komponisten in unseren neuen Räumen überhaupt machen können. Und das ist interessant. Die Raumassoziation ist nicht nur in der Komposition, sondern auch in der Architektur. Und wir hören den Raum, das hätte ich nicht gedacht, bis ich mich mit dem Komponisten wirklich mal länger unterhalten habe. Wir hören den Raum immer im Bezug zur Bewegung. Auch wenn Sie jetzt still sitzen, erleben Sie den Raum immer durch irgendwelche Richtungsänderungen und hören über Bewegungsänderungen den Raum sehr viel besser, als Sie ihn sehen oder riechen können beispielsweise. Was Schönes ist, dass ich im Hören nicht nur die Bewegung höre und dadurch den Raum mir vorstellen kann, sondern ich kann die Höhe und die Tiefe und die Nähe und die Ferne im Tonraum auch erkennen und wiederfinden. Das ist ein komplexer Vorgang und das wird Sie in Ihrer Aufgabe vor große Fragen stellen. Ich gehe jetzt mal weiter. Was bei jedem Haus, was für Musik gebaut wird, wichtig ist, ist erstmal die Raumform in der dreidimensionalen. Die Höhe und der Raumschnitt. Da gibt es Gesetzmäßigkeiten, dass Räume, wenn sie hoch sind, anders klingen, als wenn sie niedrig sind. Dass Räume, wenn sie kurz sind, anders klingen als Räume, wenn sie lang sind. Dass Räume, wenn sie schmal sind, anders klingen als Räume, die schmal und hoch sind und so weiter und so weiter. Die Höhe und der Raumschnitt hängen unmittelbar mit ihrer Konzerthalle und der späteren Rezeption zusammen. Das Zweite, was Sie sich als Frage stellen müssen, ist die Raumform zu entwickeln. Das ist jetzt eine ganz schwierige Raumform, eine asymmetrische Ellipse. Es gibt ganz unterschiedliche Raumformen für Ihre Konzertnutzung, über die Sie sich am Anfang große Gedanken machen können, um überhaupt architektonisch das Projekt weiter zu bearbeiten. Es gibt in der Architektur der Moderne so klassische Typologien. Zwei werden Sie am Ende dieses Workshops nie mehr hören wollen. Das eine ist die Weinberg-Lösung. Am Ende, Stuttgart hat viele schöne Weinberge, dann wollen Sie das Wort Weinberg wahrscheinlich gar nicht mehr hören. Und der nächste Raumbegriff, das ist der Schuhkarton. Haben Sie auch schon jetzt gehört, Sie werden am Ende des Workshops nur noch Schuhkartons, Weinberge oder Zwischenräume sozusagen sehen. Ich gehe jetzt mal auf ein paar Beispiele ein, wie in der Geschichte der Architektur und in der Geschichte der Musik gehört wird. Einfach als Einleitung in die Aufgabe für Sie in Stuttgart. Das Hören ist eigentlich in der Geschichte der Architektur immer am Anfang verbunden gewesen mit Sakralität. Sakralräume werden zu Hörräumen. Das ist jetzt mal die nächste These. Und ich zeige mal hier einen Raum. Das ist ein Tempel in Griechenland. Der ist zum Hören völlig ungeeignet. Hat außen eine wunderschöne Säulenarkade und hat innen völlig in sich abgeschlossene Sicherheitszonen für den Raum Religionsschatz oder für das Heiligtum. Dieser Raum ist für Musik nicht geeignet, weil er geschlossen ist. Interessant ist, was nach der römischen Zeit in Italien mit diesem griechischen Tempel und der christlichen Nutzung im sakralen Bereich passiert. Das ist eine Kirche. Augenblick. Na. Hier hatten wir nochmal den Tempel in sich in der Mitte abgeschlossen und wir haben draußen die Säulen und diese Kirche dreht sich im Prinzip um und das finde ich eigentlich ein unheimlich schönes architektonisches Element. Außen haben Sie jetzt die Wand, wir haben die Längsrichtung der Basilika und wir haben dann nach Osten so eine merkwürdige Ausbeulung, die Apsis, und wir haben nach Westen den Zugang mit einem Narthex, also mit einem säulenüberdeckten Eingangsbereich. Das ist eine, ach so, halt, da. Das ist eine Basilika, dreischiffig, und ist eine unheimlich schöne, einfache Raumarchitektur. Und die wird jetzt besetzt von der katholischen Kirche, nicht mehr von der griechischen Kultur. Was für eine Musik findet in diesem Raum statt? Wenn Sie den Grundriss anschauen, ist der für Sie more easy to use for music or for speeches? If you see only the ground floor, what would you say? It's a very difficult room. He's too long and it's too narrow, but he's wonderful and harmonic. In this room, where do you think could be the evil, das Böse? Kann man das verstehen? Nee, ne? Ja? Das Böse. Wo ist das Böse? Where is the evil in this ground floor? I didn't know it before. I saw it while I studied this house. This is the priest. He talks, he reads something out of the Bible, and he talks on the north, and in the north is the evil. He explains to the devil how to go on in this way. The bad side, priest side, good side. And how is he speaking? Yeah? Yes, he speaks with a raised voice. It's called Lektionston, very high, frequent, and a little bit singing. But he speaks, and his word can be understood in this form of the room. And then, after the speaking of the Bible, there are some others who will say, yes, it is right what you are talking to the evil. The devil is bad. And they sing in the so-called Gregorian chorale technique. And this is einstimmig, only one voice, but a chorus of 7 to 12 person. One line of music. So we have two noises in this house. type of the basilica. The high tone speech of the lecturer and the one voice lines of the Gregorian chorale with the Bible main lectures and something all. And this was to explain the Bible understandable with the word singing for people who couldn't write or read. And this room is best for understanding speech, but singing the speech. We have also in Germany some of these basilica types, a lot of, they became everywhere an example of modern church architecture. And here we see the same middle up to the eagle and ship, and this is the holy room. You see, it is very high, and the highness of the room is perhaps the explanation that you can understand better the speech of the high frequency singing of the lecturer. If you see the room now in the realization, flat roof, very high, very slim, and the ships with some arcades, 1/3 of 2/3, which go inside the other room of the church. If you see something of the notes now, this is the orthography of the singing of the lecturer. One tone on every syllable. Pop, 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 pop. And this is singing by one lecturer and the Gregorian team. Time was in the 9th century after Christ. This is the Romanic way of listening and experiencing special sacral rooms. We come now to the Gothic time, Gothic France. Totally different structure, only construction, only Stützen, only openings, windows, very, very high. It's 8 to 9 to 2, 9 to 1. Incredible. Some lights, some windows, and this created a total different concert acoustic. If you hear the lecturer of the Romanic tempos at time, he will sing his same chanson lecture. You hear him, but you cannot say where is he. Is he hidden, or is it a radio loudspeaker? But you cannot localize him. If he is singing, is he here? Is he there? Is he there? This is so difficult to orientate the one voice in this complicated structure that you have only also with a chorus a room feeling, but not an individual musician. This is for a piano concert totally not usable, this kind of room. It's only for singing in a mystic way, because you cannot see what you hear. perhaps some angels, perhaps some devils who are screaming. You don't know. We don't know. You cannot localize where is the singer in this room. He's high. It's high. It's constructive. It's logic, and it's very, very deep with structures differentiated. For a concert hall, not very good, or it's the new way we have to change our music in future. You didn't see him, you don't see him, but you feel the atmosphere. Renaissance, the times are changing. It's Florence. What happens? The Renaissance found some new logic systems in science, and so was also the way of building music rooms or sacral rooms. This is the Dome of Florence. This is the ground floor, not like Notre Dame in Paris. 3 ships, main ship, right ship, left ship, and a little bit too big chorus with some side apsides in this way here. It's a little bit too large in the urbanistic way. What does it mean? This is a section. It's not so high, but the cupola is incredible. This is a work of Brunelleschi, and this one is not only urbanistic, very interesting, it's also for the music very interesting. The development of music in Renaissance came to a new way of considering music. You didn't hear the music as a composer, you calculate music. It's a little bit like our electronic way of producing in the disco electronic music. The music is constructed by proportional systems which have been taken out of the proportional systems of the architecture. And these are some notes of the inauguration ceremony of the Dome of Florence, and the composer Guillaume Dufay composed eine Motette für den neuen Florentiner Dom. 4 Stück, alle 4 nach unterschiedlichen proportionalen Notensprüngen organisiert und im Prinzip der Versuch, die Logik des Baus aus Zahlen in eine Logik der Musik in Zahlenverhältnissen umzusetzen und dadurch Größenverlauf und Proportionsverlauf in der Architektur in die Musik übertragen zu wollen. Klingt sehr fremd für uns und ungewohnt. Es ist aber eben auch eine künstliche, intellektuelle Herangehensweise an diese spezielle Art der Architektur in der Umsetzung für die Musik. So, this is my favorite object and church, Venice, the Dome of San Marco. Someone of you knows him very good, I think. What happens in this house for the music? I show you the ground floor. It's totally different from the Dome of Florence. It's totally different from the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore. And it looks more like a mosque, Islamic mosque, or not so much like a Christian church, because it's very deep. It's quadratic. this is long as this. And there are a lot of, wie heißt das nochmal, Kuppel, ne? Cupola, which diffuse all music noises or something like this. And one excellent Erfindung is the invention. One of the best invention is the house has 2 floors. We now have in the first floor terraces which can be used for the music and for the acoustic. If your Stuttgart concert hall has only 1 level, the acoustic will be different as if it will have 2, 4 or 6 levels. Venice has 2 levels with the and the first floor, the empores. And I show you now the music which has been composed for this special architecture. And also, if you don't write or if you don't play an instrument, but you can see only from the notation, there are some strong graphic blocks. Bum, bum, bum. This is a block. This is another block. This is a big block. This is a little block. Big block. Thick block. And these blocks systems are from every of the first floor empores are several choruses. So Gabrieli, this was the Giovanni Gabrieli, this was the composer, used the architecture, put 7, 8 or 12 choruses on every of the first floor places, and gave everyone a block to sing. This is one of the first times that in architecture you can hear the direction where the you can it comes from here. You hear the chorus. The other answers. And if you see the ground floor, it was a joke for Gabrieli to use all the axes and to scream by chorus 1 from here. He screams to these. They answered him here. The other one answered them to here, or like this. And so the whole room was a system of acoustic events which he positionated in the homophonic harmony. It was fantastic to listen in this room, and you could hear the sound comes from here, chorus 1, answered from chorus 2, question from here, like this. And it's one of the first time in architecture that it was so easy to localize the place where it where the singer have been. This room was very nice, usable for music, but only for a special music, because the music had to be big, thick, and you cannot hear a little bit laut und leise or singing with no tone and crescendo. Crescendo was not movable in this kind of architecture. Okay, but what we saw is the form of the room, the two floors could determine another way of acoustic in this church room, which was in the Venezia history very modern, and came down to also to England and France. This is one of my nicest pictures, the block system. You see this music, not hearing it. So, how goes it? These have been only churches. The church, the Catholic Church, did not allow theater and music rooms, but they used the church rooms to make music and theater. So it is very strategic not to allow public theater, but to use the church with theatrical ways. The first really not sacral room for concert and theater using is in Sabionetta, a house by Scamozzi. It's not a church, it's a normal house. What do you think? How many floors has this house? It's easy to see. It must be 2 floors, because line of the windows on the ground floor, line of the windows in the first floor, nothing special. Why do we talk on this house? I will show you the ground floor, and now we are coming a little bit already to the concert hall problem. Also in Stuttgart, I saw the site with Nico Götze. And this is the floor plan. Totally unexpected, and very new. It is an original draft by Scamozzi. Was built in 1588 or 1519. And what do you see here? A wall, a pre-room, a large room, a strange perspective performance room, and the same room in the backstage. It's already the system of a public house using in front the entrance area to enter, back the artist area to go on the stage. You have to think a lot in Stuttgart. Where do you put all the artists in your ground floor? From where will them appear into the big concert hall? It's not so easy, and they made it very easy in this room. It was like a palestra, like a sports hall, nothing more. So it looks from the inside like it was a very rich duke who wanted to make his own concert and theater house, and he was not allowed to use sacralic typologies, so he used the house typology of typical Italian house floor systems. In the middle, public, only here. This is new. This was not allowed at the Duke's time. Here is the family of the Duke, upstairs some very rich people of the town of Vicenza. So Inside the house, you see the social systems of society also in this little theater. And this is the stage. I found it fantastic. The stage is equal for every performance. But the stage should be every time a picture of a town, of a city, not of the landscape, not of nature. And it was every time the same. And it had only to allow a perspective view, some entrances from the left or from the right for the artists, and some escape areas for the for escaping from the platform level here in this time. The walls have been painted, very nice. They have been reconstructed, and this is the theater. But I go. Okay. If you have some questions, please don't hesitate to interrupt. More famous in architectural history is a theater and here room by Palladio, the Teatro Olimpico in Vicenza, and it is not a new house. It's an old house reconstructed like this one, and inside is a new Teatro Olimpico. How does it work? It was the same system of Epidaurus, of the Greek theater, sitting for the people. Some edges from the urbanistic situation in the old palace could be used, symmetrical for entering on the first floor, on the second floor for the public. This is the stage area, and this is the image of the city perspectives for the artists. And what does it mean? They wanted, you see, some strange trapezoid forms here. This is perspective seen to make the street longer as it was in reality. It's a trick. Here are the rooms for the artists, very functional. This is the bar, like you have here in the academy. Downstairs, there is no Elbe River, but it is a better wine. And this is the theater of Palladio. Inside, you will be surprised. Incredible. It's a mix of theaters, very strong stairs. Like Epidaurus, is it not anymore, but it seems to be. And this one is the area of the beginning of the stage scene. It's a palace. It's a Renaissancemental or a Roman palace type, and there are openings here, and the openings will go like streets in the inside of the stage. This is for the visitors to enter from above, and there are it's also visible for visitors with a lower income. From this time upstairs, it's more cheaper to see theater and concerts like on the parquet here in this way. What do you see also for your concert hall? You have to decide a very difficult decision at the beginning. The sky. This sky is a picture of a sky, and it's horizontal. It's the baddest form of sky of a concert hall. But it is a nice form to close a house with a big place. So we have to decide for Stuttgart how do we think on the ceiling over the concert hall. And this is like, it's fantastic. It's a palace, it's a urbanistic area. You see, we are now all the visitors, and we see the main street, it's a city. We see the left, here all the bad people escape. Here the nice and good holy people appears, and inside is the theater. This is the roof, the ceiling, flat, not yet as a painting, but it's a urbanistic situation, and you cannot, sitting inside, decide whether you are outside in the free landscape or inside the house. You are looking on a house facade and not out of a house facade. This is theater. Ich mach's nochmal weiter. This is an actual photo, and the architecture is used to close and to open the scenery of the stage. If you see the section, you see some problems of this room. What problem concerning your concert hall project could be hidden in this section? You see the perspective, the ground floor is going up. This makes the perspective longer of the interior of the street. You see the people sitting area, you see the columns, and you see the low-cost area with the statues, and this is the roof. This proportion of the rooms, also Palladio learned it very quickly, is not so good for speak language. It's much more better for music use. The acoustic for musicians was one of the best acoustics in a theater for language. Bad for Palladio, but good for the composers. They discovered it very quick. Okay. Also, too high, too small, and rebombing in this way, different from this. Very good with the round situation of the seating was the reflection to the stage area. Okay. Oops. This is the fantastic in the existing palace, only the round of Epidaurus made by Palladio or copied by Palladio. A fantastic room area, not good for theater, very good for music. If you are interested, but it's not so interesting for Stuttgart, there are also other forms of presentation. This is a political problem we have also now in the situation on the Ukraine or between Russia and Ukraine. This is a movable theater, and if the police, the secret police comes, they can in 1 minute close all the representation area, make it together and go back. Tiny houses 400 years ago, nothing new. It was good to escape, but because they criticized with their art performances, they criticized also the Duke or the government, also the church, and so they had to invent an architecture form to escape very quick, because otherwise they would be headed or go to prison. Another way we could think also in Stuttgart is the Globe Theatre system of the Shakespeare area. It is an interior courtyard, very high, with living areas and floors upstairs, and a stage as a construction in the middle, and a little stage here. Here is good making music, because they have a roof over the music very near, and a big room where the music can spread into the courtyard. Globe Theatre. Not only good for speech, very good for music. Then this is one of the strangest mechanical inventions of the 17th century. The music room, the music hall as a machine. You think it could be a scientific film of George Orwell. This is 1655, a concert room, and together with some theater. And the new invention is the public is in the middle here, inside, and the performance rooms are here on the outside bones in these buildings. What was the sense? The sense was they could make different sceneries, not only one, like the city of Palladio. This is Kneipe, this is bucolic, this is church, this could be the Duke and his wife area for presentation. And what happens with the public? The stage could be built before the public enters. The public takes place, and this is the first act. Then the second act, then the third act, and the fourth act is to be looked on. But how can I move my public? And he invented a very nice system. This is the section. It's a wheel. You can make round or go round like a wheel of a car. And downstairs is another room area with a column and some Esel. Was heißt Esel? Donkeys. And if the public, the act changed, the donkeys had to move here, the wheel, and they changed all the public upstairs in the right position. It's a very modern way not to build the stage during the performance, but to make it clear at the beginning and to turn only the public into another direction. It must have been fantastic to be moved by 17 donkeys of some European countries mixed together in this room. Okay. This is the Renaissance we know very good. What I wanted to say with this picture is that now the view of the city, of the community, separates in a view of several individuals. This city exists only with palaces, different palaces, individual palaces, which form but a political place, an urbanistic place, and in the middle is a cultural building. Very easy, but individual families, family 1, family 2, cultural community building, and the public space is the public space which brings the individuals together. This does mean also the beginning of the end of the sacralization of concert and theater rooms. It begins now. And I will show you a very nice example of the end sacralization. Mannheim, Schloss, the castle. The Duke, very narcissistic, eitel, vanitas, I don't know the words, but he loves architecture. He loves music, sorry. He said to his architect, make me a room where I can listen my own music. And this room was here, built in the castle. This is the room for the Duke. And what do you see as a concert hall architect on this room? Look it on. How do you see the proportions? What do you think on the height? What do you think on the walls? What do you think on the pavement? It's interesting that the room is very high. It's interesting that the ceiling is flat, totally flat. And it's interesting that the pavement is of wood. This room was for the musicians in this time too big. And the Duke was every time a little bit disillusionated when he heard the music, because he likes to listen to the music only alone. He and the musicians and no enemy, like Putin, alone and nothing else. This room desired another form of music because it was too high, too big, and a little bit for this with a little bit too much hallig, echo, a little bit too much echo. And then comes this is culture, I think. He invited musicians who heard the same intention of the room. It was too much echo, and they did not criticize this room. They wanted to make some compositions for the Duke, and they adapted the composition to the room. So, who was there? It was Stamitz, it was Haydn. He came from Vienna because the Duke was very rich, and he supported the composers with much money if they composed some good pieces. What the composers heard was, it was very nice to hear flute sound, Holzbläser, wooden instrument, and you heard a little bit better than in the normal main rooms of the castles. You had heard a little better the upper frequencies, viele Oberstimmen. And Haydn composed with a very good sound. Wie kann man das sagen? Haydn felt that something in the music which does not exist up to this moment, this time, could be very easy heard there. It was the invention of the crescendo, from piano to loud, from loud to piano, from piano to middle loud, from middle loud to very loud, by some pieces. So he composed in this room a new composition technique, which is called the Neue Wiener Klassik. Mozart had the same impression, experience in these rooms, and so a style of music invention changed by the experience of this very strange Rittersaal in the castle of Mannheim. A totally new music has been invented and came over to Vienna, Salzburg, Prague, up to Spain. This room was the beginning of a revolution of the Wiener Classic. So, if you don't hesitate to say stop, mister. If it's too long, I cannot. I would, if it's too long. But now, after the French Revolution, the way of listening changed a lot. This is France, some 100 years after Paris, some 100 years after the room in Mannheim, Invalidendom. I show you the ground floor. Blue is. There are two churches, back to back, constructed together with a not ever heard acoustic, and it was in a work by Mansart. Der hat halt Paris gebaut und geplant und jetzt hat er auch den Invalidendom sich ausgedacht. 1840 wurde das eine Militärkirche zum Gedenken an Napoleon und hier wurde dann angesichts eines großen Krieges eine große Messe aufgeführt, die man bis daher nicht aufführen konnte. Heißt Grand Messe des Morts, the Great the Great Mass for the dead people in the war against Algeria, I think. And this is the partitur. Only 250 singers, some 300 musicians, some other 300 drums, and something like that, everything without any scale in this church. And Berlioz wrote this partitur, and you see also from the some similarity to Gabrieli you see on the blocks in the note systems, but this was he didn't write forte. He wrote only forte with 2F, fortissimo or forte, fortissimo. Everything was exaggerated, and when the Messa was performed with this mass, with this excellent number of thousands of musicians and singers, the priest of the church came with tears to Berlioz. I have tears in for half an hour. It was so impressionated. I never heard my church so suffering by your music. One listener ist ohnmächtig geworden, weil sie den Krach nicht mehr ertragen hat. Und auf diese gesamte Atmosphäre muss einen unglaublichen Einfluss auf die Zuhörerschaft gehabt haben, dass man Musik hier tatsächlich wie eine Art Droge auch benutzt hat. Sagenhaft. So, ich bin jetzt auch gleich durch. Ich will Ihnen, I want to show you only a little bit development from opera. Dresden, the first Semper opera, like Cathedra, as we know, the stage rooms became every time bigger and bigger. The proportions of the houses changed from year to year. After the fire, the Semper opera has been constructed in a new way and became bigger and bigger. You see the main room for our audience with 4 or 6 floors upstairs. And this, more than the half of the house, is only the stage production. So you see also the development in use of square meters. Only to produce a piece of music, you need the half of the architecture. Then another thing happened, very bad for the European cities. The element of the stage became in every house even more important. They became bigger and bigger, and the reason was these are the prospects, and the prospects should be as high as the opening of to the stage, and you can pull them upstairs and they have to disappear. So the tower became higher and higher the bigger the wall, the theater or the concert room became. I found a very nice drawing in culture development. This describes very good the proportions of culture buildings in the 19th, in the last century. Bigger and bigger. It's only for serving, and this is the little theater or concert room in the middle. The rest is only technique for the use of the house. One step this century developed a new cultus. Not the priest was now the star guest. The artist became the new priest. And I found Liszt or Chopin or Richard Wagner. The substitutes of the church are the musicians, the composers. And now, one project you should know, also if you heard a lot of it since a long times, it is the house of Bayreuth from Richard Wagner, the composer, and Semper, the architect. And it is one of the few examples that a musician, composer, worked together with an architect to compose a special room for music. Generally, musicians that are not interested in architecture. They make their operas and nothing else. Wagner had the idea of a total work of art. Also, the architecture of the house where his music was played should be special. And what is special on this? This is in the 19th century, totally unexpected. It's a fabric. It's more a magazine for Getreide, wheat, something like this, than a house for music. But it's fantastic. It's very functional. It's house with public spaces outside, with the scenery of the artists, and this is the tower of the stage. And these strange things here we can only understand in the ground floor. A totally new type of concert and music hall Wagner created because he was so strange in his way his music has to be listened, that he constructed with Semper the Epidaurus theater audience. Only one floor, no stage pianos, sopra, a flat ceiling. This is standing places, not for sitting, and this is the concert hall. Minimalism. And this is the ground floor. Now, today, I think at my university, we couldn't design a project like this because it would not be accepted. What is so strange on this house? This is a theater, it's very functional. This is the stage, and this is an architectural element where some vertical screens can be displaced from the interior, outside in the interior, without being constructed. And so it's the functionalism of Bayreuth is very unknown, and I have never heard some critics on this house for beginning modernism. It was only a little bit strange, considered Wagner, strange people. He is a monoman. But in the ground floor plan, this was one of the most revolutionary developments of a room for music. And now another invention. Why does it sound so good inside the house? It's strange. He was a musician and he knew that music flows. Where is the orchestra? Where are sitting the orchestra people? Here. And he arranged totally new the sitting order of a classical orchestra. Here the violins, then the lower violins, then the basses, and this in this buco, sagt man auf Italienisch, nel in the black inside, the poor trumpets and hornets and brass instruments. It was horrible to sit here inside for the musicians because the music was extremely loud. Today they play with earphones and to protect themselves, but acoustically as a musician, as a composer, it was so fantastic that the brass volumes had to overwhelm the violinists and the smart instruments to go directly into the public. this is the same direction as the public is sitting. And you see it only from the section. They are very rarely publicated. I searched a lot for this original section. The trumpet is giving all this power into the public, and for this the brass sound of Parzival and something like this is so totally treating the people. Ja, das ist Wagner, und hier nochmal the most modern music house in the in the 19th century. It's worth to visit. It looks a little bit like a house for your grandfather and a modern avant-garde artist. It's a strange way of architecture. Ja, und das ist jetzt das Letzte. How we hear the music in the best way in the world. Vienna, Schuhkarton. Das kennen wir jetzt. Why is it so good? It's a rectangular. The people are sitting in the best situation. They have daylight upstairs, and there are places for standing people, sitting places, and we have the distance from the orchestra to the walls are very small, and this is so important also for your concert house where your orchestra is seated. Do the walls on the margins of the orchestra as near to the orchestra, so you can have the echo very quick, and the big echo in the room will come afterwards. It's very important. Ja, this was das Geheimnis der Musik. Schuhkarton, Weinberg, kommen wir vielleicht, wenn Sie wollen. Und das ist the end project for today. Is it 1 hour and 37 minutes? I'm stumbling here. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But this is a project you have to study. If you find it, it's worth. It's in the 20th century, a movable theater, unrealized, a project by Gropius and Erwin Piscator in the 20th century, in the first 20 years, with variability of the stage places. And this is fantastic. A house which moves like the tiny comedy houses in the 17th century. This is the orchestra. These are the people in the middle. If you change it mechanical, the orchestra can be also at the end of the room. And this is the public around the orchestra. And if you make it totally like an opera house, you can also make the orchestra and the scene in the back of the oval, and you can use all this place for the public. This is fantastic. It opens a lot of possibilities for the musicians to present chamber music, orchestra music, and music with singers and orchestra. The case music and orchestra and singer is this position. This is more middle, big orchestra, not too much chamber music, and this could be also chamber music. This is more solistic, this is more a group, and this is a little group. We had in the Elbphilharmonie some months ago the case that the stage was in the middle and the singer sang, and he sang to the public here, and in the back room one of the spectators said, "Could you sing a little bit louder, please? I cannot hear you." And the singer turned around, looked on the man who said this, and left the stage because he felt himself interrupted. Okay, this is the position not for solistic people, more this. It's very near to the Semper opera in the architectonical expression, but no. It is a modern architecture. Today we don't see a house for musicians inside. It looks more than a parking house or a big garage. Yeah. One little at the end, if you want to see the Weinberg, then it's enough. This is the Philharmonie in Berlin. It is one of the best inventions in the last century by Sharon in the 16th build. It's the Weinberg concept, not the Schuhkarton concept, and it works with some levels, and this was the preliminary sketch. The sky, the area of the tribunes. You see a totally asymmetric interior room. This is very important. If you have a free room, please don't be symmetric, organize an asymmetry. This could help to make more better acoustic. And Sharon invented something which he did not realize, and now in the Elbphilharmonie it's standard. He invented also already this strange reflector in the middle of the room, which hang down from the ceiling. This should be there to if you hear the orchestra. The sound goes up to this screen, and it will return directly to the public. If we don't have this one, we have the big room, and the sound goes directly to the wall. He has lost already a lot of energy and has to return like an old man to the seat on the tribunes, and he loses a lot of energy. So if you need for the Stuttgart Concert Hall Weinberg solutions, don't forget the nearest reflector hanging down from the ceiling. Otherwise, the sound will not come back. Yeah, this is the Weinberg the sketch, and this is the fantastic room. Why is this room better than the Elbphilharmonie? I think it's a proportional idea. The Elbphilharmonie is created in a time when the costs of housing and hotels, you could earn some money. Inside it was a small space. Outside was living hotel use you can better sell. The philharmonic proportions have not the vertical structure like the Elbphilharmonie. They are more horizontal, and this horizontal orientation makes the longer the street shorter for the acoustic, and the loss of energy is not so much. So landscape and Weinberg solutions, better, flatter, and very important also is something which every client hates because it costs only money and it does not have sense, is this room between the roof and the ceiling. The bigger this room is, the better will be the acoustic of the Philharmonic. This is the secret you can later hear in the music. If you make this smaller, you don't have any resonance room. You can see it if you see a cello with a big resonance corpus and a little violin with a small resonance corpus. You see it directly. This one is the secret of the Philharmonie of Berlin and the horizontal structure. Jetzt sage ich Ihnen nochmal den Grundriss. Auch this is very important. You have to study this ground floor plan. You have to learn it by heart, I beg you. Look what is symmetric, and look what is symmetric, and look where begins the asymmetric confusion in this ground floor plan. This is a masterpiece of a longer structure like a Schuhkarton, long, but it's a Weinberg because it's in three-dimensional. The orchestra is in this place here, seen from the back, seen from the left, seen from the right, and seen from the front. This is perfectly, and the asymmetric, why is it so important? It's important to protect us from echo results, so you can hear the voices clearer, better, also fuller without this echo. It's important to find some structures which breaks the symmetry in all these rooms. Ja, das wäre jetzt soweit eigentlich alles. Ich danke Ihnen für Ihre Geduld. I thank you very much for your patience. I hope it was not too bad, this English, but I speak all the day Italian and a little bit German, so I confused in my brain every time 3 languages. So I'm sorry, but thank you very much and have a nice workshop. And I'm very curious, I'm very emotional, also interested to see the results of the workshop in Stuttgart, where I am constructing now a theater for modern dance, so you have a good concurrence nearby. So I'm very, very curious and wish you a big, good workshop in the nicest Academy of Europe. And I thank you to Nico Götze and to Mr. Mark for the opportunity to talk here. Thank you also to you. I think it's a fantastic way to learn architecture by making architecture with architects, and perhaps we have also some musicians who will criticize our or your projects at the end. Yeah, thank you very much.
And I got your book.
Yeah?
Yeah. And this is a fantastic book done by your wife. It's brand new and enormous good texts. And in the end, there is a thanksgiving. And, pardon, now I copy your words by reading it, only some. For this, I think this text echoes your life philosophy, I think, and the way, how you work in your office. And he writes only some sentences of this book. Was uns seit 1986 fasziniert hat, was uns zusammengeführt hat, war neben der Erfahrung der Architektur als kommender Teil der Stadt immer der Wunsch nach der Architektur als Raum und Ort der Begegnung. Architektur ist für Menschen gedacht, nie Selbstzweck. Architektur ist eine soziale Raumkunst in der Stadt. Sie ist dabei nicht nur Enge und Weite, Material oder funktionale Konstruktion. Sie ist ein Erkenntnisinstrument. Geschichte wird über Architektur als Teil der Gegenwart wahrgenommen. Gegenwart kann über Architektur in einen die Zukunft antizipierenden Auftritt transponiert werden. Und dann schreibt er weiter, das ist wie eine Verfassung. Dass wir uns im Laufe unserer Büroentwicklung immer mehr zu leidenschaftlichen Theater- und Opernhausarchitekten entwickelt haben, ist ein großes Glück. Im Theater, in der Oper, im Klangraum finden wir den richtigen Ort für die architektonische Fantasie. Vielfalt, Sinnlichkeit und Illusion, die uns zu traumfähigen Menschen macht. Die Architektur als Teil unserer Kultur zu begreifen, hilft uns dabei. Und dann ganz am Schluss der letzte Satz. Architektur, die brennt, lebt nicht lange. Sie wird schnell zu Asche. Architektur, die sich zu schönen Räumen fügt, bleibt. Wenn sie dann auch noch gut klingt, haben wir gewonnen. Weißt du, diesen Sätzen am Schluss hast du das alles schon vorausgenommen, was wir überhaupt erst noch lernen wollen. Und das ist einfach eine absolute Wucht. Ich danke dir nochmal.
Ich danke euch. Danke dir. Okay.
I do not know, also, kennst du Bernhard Lindner?
Ja.
Aha. Bernhard Lindner ist ein...
Also nicht persönlich.
Ja, das ist ein Architekt, ich bin mit ihm sehr gut befreundet. Der ist Architekt, war in New York Stadtplaner, ist genau auf dieses Phänomen Raum und Klang gekommen und hat angefangen, Maschinen zu bauen und Installationen zu machen, die Raumklänge produzieren. Plätze, wo man drüber geht und man denkt, man ist in einem rauschenden Weizenfeld. Oder im Parc de la Villette, eine Rotunde, wo Querklänge durchlaufen und durch Wasser das Geräusch des Verkehrs außen abgeschirmt wird. Oder ein Regenschirm, ein schwarzer, den man über sich hält und es pritzelt dann aus lauter kleinen Mikrofonen, wie wenn oben die Sterne blitzen. Alles akustisch. Und ich habe den mal eingeladen. Und in diesem Buch hier ist am Schluss nur über diese musikalischen Dinge ein Gespräch mit ihm drin, mit Bernhard Lindner. Und das nächste Mal, wenn er hier ist oder wenn ich ihn sehe oder du bist mal in Berlin, dann musst du ihn kennenlernen.
Ja, gerne. Oh, ja? Das ist ja nett.
So, also nochmal herzlichen Dank. Das war wirklich eine Wucht. Und da, bei dir möchte ich nochmal Student werden.
Thank you very much, Jörg Friedrich. I think we want to move on next door and we'll continue our discussion there. So thank you very much for everybody for being here and everybody for being online. And thank you again, Professor Friedrich, for your lecture.